Good evening, everyone. Welcome to you, our guests, in this scientific electronic lecture entitled An Investigation of Factors Predicting Academic Writing Difficulties Among First-Year Doctoral Students, held by the Department of English, College of Arts, University of Mosul, under the supervision of the Dean of the College of Arts, Dr. Muhammad Ali Muhammad, along with the department's head professor, Dr. Baqsem Yahya Jasser. Many thanks for all of them. My name is Huda Al-Hassani, a lecturer at University of Mosul, College of Arts, Department of English. It's my pleasure to be the moderator of this lecture. Now, let me introduce my colleague, Dr. Emman Ibrahim, the presenter for this lecture about her PhD dissertation at University of Central, Florida, USA. Dr. Emman, however, is currently member of the staff at University of Mosul, College of Arts, Department of English. She is a lecturer of grammar at our department and English language for diploma, MA, and PhD at College of Administration and Economics. So far, her major interest is developing academic writing about undergraduate students in the ESL and EFL context. She also participated in a number of conferences in the United States, like Regional TESOL Conference, TESOL International Convention and English Language Expo, and Florida Educational Research Association. In addition of getting 2 fellowships from the University of Central Florida. So, nice to have you with us today, Dr. Emman. Yet, before I'll give the floor to Dr. Emman, I'd be so grateful if you switch off your mics during the presentation. And if you have any questions, you can ask at the end of the lecture. Best of luck to you, Dr. Emman, and I wish you all the joy with her lecture, our guests. Thank you. Dr. Emman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Huda, for this nice introduction, and welcome all. Hello, dear colleagues. Thank you for attending this presentation. I'm glad to have you all. So, my dissertation tackled an important topic that most of graduate students suffer from, that is academic writing. So, this study investigated the variables that predict academic writing difficulties among first-year doctoral students, and those students were international and domestic. So they were international from different nationalities and American students. And this study happened at a large publicly funded research university in southeastern United States. So as you all know, academic writing refers to the prestigious writing style that's used in scientific research to address a specific topic in a field. Academic writing is a key that is used in scientific research to address a specific topic. Academic writing is a key point of academic research process. So through which scientists usually report situations of thinking, experience, observation, application, testing, etc., as to solution of a scientific problem identified. And moreover, academic writing is a skill that's considered as the most critical aspect of language proficiency to succeed in any academic writing. So now let me share with you my presentation, and I would be glad to answer your questions. So first, let's go through the problem of the study. The first thing is that much research on academic writing difficulties happens among the international graduate students, not domestic students. So if you take a quick examination of previous studies on this topic, it shows that academic writing difficulties of international graduate students usually received greater attention compared to those faced by domestic students. Okay, so the second problem that this study tried to solve is that increasing the importance of academic writing as students move to a higher level of education. So as we know, academic writing is the cornerstone of graduate and undergraduate education that all students, whether international or domestic, should master if they want to attain university degree, any university degree. And so in addition to the high proficiency, they need to get, you know, the proficiency test, like for example, the TOEFL or the GRE. They need also, those graduate students need also to meet the requirements, the expectations, and the kind of genres and the purposes of the scientific field they are studying in. Okay, and it also, if you take a look at the literature review, you will find that prior research has also shown that domestic students are also as inadequately prepared for the writing demands of graduate school like international students. And this is due to different reasons, such as the tedious taken for granted practices and policies in the higher education of the United States. It also can be referred to the generality of the mandatory composition classes they are taking in high schools. Okay, and also students' overuse of jargon in their writing. So they usually talk the street language more than the academic language or the language they need to use when they reach university. So this is as far as the problem is concerned. Now we're gonna have a look at the gaps in the literature. So no prior research happened on academic writing difficulties among first-year doctoral students, international versus domestic in an ESL environment. Most of the research tackled academic writing difficulties for international students in terms of, for example, writing dissertations or like making a report, but none of them discussed international students versus domestic students in an ESL environment. Some of the research took a look at international students in an EFL environment. Now, another gap that I found is that multiple predictor factors of academic writing difficulties among first-year doctoral students. So this is another gap that I found in the literature. Most of research, they discussed one factor only in terms or related to doctoral students, but none took a look at multiple predictors. And also academic writing difficulties that doctoral students face. So most of you, and I thought also that domestic students, American students, don't face any problems in writing, but you're gonna see that they also face some problems in writing, like international students. And my study handled different programs. So it was conducted on different programs in the university, like engineering, computer engineering, also education with all of its other departments, also in medicine, College of Medicine. You can see that in details. So now we come to the purpose of this study. So the main purpose of this study is to understand factors that predict academic writing difficulties among first-year doctoral students. And I took into account descriptive variables in addition to other variables. What I mean by descriptive variables, like, for example, sex, male, female, age, also ethnicity, in addition to other different variables or factors. Now, research questions. For my study, I have 2 research questions with 1 sub-research question. So the first research question, it says that our motivation for academic writing, college of study, GRE writing scores, gender, race, and age, statistically significant predictors of self-reported academic writing difficulties among first-year doctoral students at a large university, public university in the southeastern United States. And the sub-question is, how much of the variance in self-reporting writing difficulties is explained by motivation for academic writing, college of study, GRE writing scores, gender, race, and age? The second research question is, are there statistically significant differences between international and domestic students in their levels of motivation for academic writing, self-reported writing difficulties, and GRE writing scores? Now we come to the methodology. As for the research designs, the study followed 2 designs, correlational and causal comparative. And the reason that I used both is that this study is an exploratory, quantitative, non-experimental research. So the first research design, which is the correlational, it's used for research question 1 and its sub-question, while the causal comparative design was used for the research question 2. And using 2 research designs was suitable and justifiable in this study for 2 reasons. First, the same data was used to answer both research questions. And second, the analysis of research question 2 was a fairly natural extension of research question 1. Okay, so that's why 2 research designs were used. Now, if we come to the sampling and the sample size, you can see that I used Sinus's sampling procedure was utilized to reach as many members of the population as possible. And the recruited sample consisted of 2 groups, as you know, international and domestic. And to be precise, more precise, those students were matriculated during the semesters of summer 2018, fall 2018, and spring 2019. And matriculated means they were actually admitted as starting degree program in any of the aforementioned semesters. As for the inclusion criteria for the sample were they should be, number 1, doctoral students who were enrolled in different doctoral programs and in their first year of academic doctoral program, and from different nationalities who are required to write their assignments in English as a second language. And finally, some of them were native English speakers who were required to write their assignments in English as their first language. Now, if we come to the so we have like 111 doctoral students. These were the recruited sample, and their ages were between 18 and 65, as we said, from various doctoral fields. And if we go to the setting, the sample was collected from 2 campuses. So UCF, University of Central Florida, has 7 campuses all over Florida. But I collected my data from UCF, which is the main campus in Orlando, and the other campus of UCF was the health sciences campuses, which is Lake Nuna. And I chose those both campuses because those are the only ones with PhD studies. So that's the reason behind this. Now we come to the data collection procedures and analysis. So the first thing that you have, if you want to collect your data, you have to take the IRB approval. And what we mean by IRB is the university's institutional review board. So this board should give you an approval because you're gonna have a connection with human beings. So they have to protect those human beings. That's why you have to get the IRB approval. So the IRB approval has approved the study request on November 2018. And once the IRB approval was obtained, the pilot study was launched. So what do we mean by pilot study? Pilot study is an experimental study. So you do it to collect data and then analyze it to answer all the questions, address all the problems you have in the survey. So this is the pilot study. So once I got the IRB approval, the pilot study was launched and completed by November 15, 2018. And the data from the pilot study was analyzed and the suggestions of the participants were addressed. And this information has been used to improve the items of the final survey. And the final survey was open for 2 months, and 2 reminders were sent to the participants during that period to get as many responses as possible. Now we come to when we collected the data. So data were collected during the summer semester of 2019. And as we said, we took 2 months to collect the data, and we sent 2 reminders to the participants. Okay. Now to the analyses. What did we use for the analyses and why? So the thing is that with the analyses, as we said, we have 2 questions. They were led by 2 research designs. And since this study followed 2 designs, it was analyzed using SPSS version 24, and utilizing 2 statistical procedures plus a post-hoc analysis. So the first analysis was multiple linear regression, and the second one was multivariate analysis of variance, and the post-hoc was multivariate analysis of covariance. So the MLR, or the multiple linear regression, was used to analyze data obtained for research question 1 and its sub-question, while the MANOVA, or the multivariate analysis of variance, and the Mancuva, which is the post-hoc, were implemented to analyze data obtained for research question 2. So even though both statistical analyses are multivariate data analysis methods, MLR was used to study the strength of relationships and predictions among variables, while the MANOVA was used to examine differences among dependent and independent variables. And the Mancuva, on the other hand, was used as a post-hoc for the MANOVA, controlling for the GRE variable of the writing scores to show the differences in motivation between the two samples, which is the international and domestic group. Okay. Now to the data analysis and the results. So the major findings. First, we're going to discuss the MLR analysis. So the results of the MLR, the first regression equation was statistically significant. So for the multiple linear regression, I ran it twice to get better results. So the first regression equation was statistically significant, and it was found that 30.1% of the variance in academic writing difficulties was accounted for by the linear composite of predictor variables. And this model included all the variables, all the independent variables, both statistically significant and non-significant. And here is what I got. These are the results of the first model. So as you can see, we have the GRE, motivation, ethnicity. And under ethnicity, we have Black African and Asian, all the ethnicities, then the college, then the age, then the gender. So you can see that we have the statistically and non-statistically significant. So those in circles, they are the statistically significant ones. Okay, those out of circles, they are non-statistically significant results. For the second model, so as we said, because I got non-significant results, then I ran and I ran the MLR again. And the second linear combination was again statistically significant. And based on the results of the second model, it appeared that Asian ethnicity, colleges of business, engineering, and science, and the age of 55 to 64 were the best predictors of academic writing difficulties. So the second model was run because I wanted to know which of these variables best predict academic writing difficulties. And it appears that, again, Asian ethnicity, colleges of business, engineering, and science, and age of 55 to 64 were the best predictors of academic writing difficulties among participants, accounting for 25% of the variance of self-assessed academic writing difficulties. Now, these are the results of the second model. As you can see, we got Asian, the colleges of business, engineering, science, and age of 55 to 64. They were the best predictors because they were all significant. Asian and the age, these were the best predictors among all. Now we come to the results of the MANOVA. So these results were for research question 1, which concerned with the best predictors of academic writing difficulties. Now we come to the results of the MANOVA, which looks at the mean differences between international and domestic students. So there were statistically significant differences for the academic writing difficulties and the GRE scores between domestic and international students. However, no statistical difference has been found between the two groups in terms of motivation. So we found statistically significant differences in terms of the AWD and the GRE, but not for motivation. And that's why we conducted the post-hook analysis, which is the Mancuva. So let's see first the results for the MANOVA. So these are the results for the MANOVA. As you can see, the GRE is significant, which means that we found significant differences between international and domestic students in terms of the GRE. We also found it for the AWD, which is the academic writing difficulties, but not for motivation. Motivation, so for the GRE, as you can see, it's significant. For the AWD, it's significant, but for the motivation, we couldn't find any differences. That's why we use the post-hook analysis. With the Mancuva, you take out one of these variables. So for example, we took the GRE out, and then we ran the analysis again, and we found statistically significant differences. So for the MANOVA, we couldn't find for the motivation, but we found statistical differences between the GRE and the AWD. So now we go to the MANOVA. So for the, sorry, the Mancuva. The Mancuva, which is the post-hook analysis, when we ran it, we took out the GRE out of the equation and we ran it. And the results, they go as there was a statistically significant difference in motivation between domestic and international students when the GRE was used as a covariant. As a covariant means that you take it out of the equation and you run the analysis. And there was also a statistically significant difference in the academic writing difficulties between both the groups. So in addition to the difference that we found in motivation, we also find differences within academic writing difficulties between both the groups. Okay, so these are the Mancuva results. As you can see, motivation now is statistically significant. And also the academic writing difficulties between both groups when we take the GRE out of the equation. Now we come to the discussion and conclusions. So before discussing the results, there are important things that you should put in mind. Number one, when you interpret the results, it's important to remember that the greater academic writing difficulty scores are, the mean of them, This means that students found writing easier, okay? And the minimum score possible is 20, and the maximum score was 100. So a score of 20 means that they scored every item as extremely difficult. What I mean by items, this means that the assignments, the writing assignments they got during their first year, okay? And the score 100 means that they scored every item as extremely easy. So the more the number goes up, means they found writing easier, and vice versa. And as for motivation, the larger numbers mean that students were less motivated, okay? So the minimum score was 9, and the maximum score was 45. So the more the number goes up, 45 means they are not motivated at all. 9 means they are mostly motivated. And finally, only mean scores were used to compare both the groups. For the Mancuva and the Mancuva, only the mean scores were used to compare both groups, international and domestic students, in the Mancuva analysis. Okay? So after we discuss these points, now we come to discuss the results for the multiple linear regression. As we said, we have multiple linear regression. These are the best predictors of multiple linear regression, which is the Asian ethnicity, business college, engineering college, science college, and age of 55 to 64. So this means that the result says, while Asian students reported more writing difficulties, all other statistically significant contributors reported fewer difficulties. This means that science, College of Sciences, businesses, engineering, and age of 55 to 64, they got less difficulties. Those people in those colleges, they realized that the writing process is easier for them. And if we come to the Mancuva test, we can find that status means the international and domestic students. So it means both groups, international and domestic students. And we tested them according to the GRE, to the academic writing difficulties and motivation. And according to the Mancuva test, we said that we found the statistically significant differences between both groups in terms of GRE and academic writing difficulties, but not for motivation. Motivation was not statistically significant. That's why we use the Mancuva, which is a post-hook analysis. So this means that the results of the post-hook analysis, the Mancuva, showed statistically significant differences, as we said, in motivation between both groups, and the GRE was used as a covariant. So it was controlled for, and then the test was run again, and we found statistically significant difference in motivation between both groups. So these are the results for the Mancuva, which is the post-hook. And as you can see, we have both groups, domestic, international, and we tested them according to the mean differences. So what does these numbers say? What do they say? What do they mean? They mean that this number for the international students, it means that internationals are less motivated to write, Remember, we said that the higher the number goes, the less motivated they are. So 45 is not motivated at all. So they are less motivated than the domestic students. But if we come to the academic writing here, now we are comparing academic writing difficulties between both international and domestic students. So what does this number say? It means that domestic students had fewer difficulties than international students. Okay, so international students were more motivated, but domestic students had faced fewer difficulties in their writing than internationals. Now we come to the implications of this study, how this study is important. So first, it's important for instruction. So Asian students feel that they have more writing difficulties and they need more support from graduate instructors. So as you know, in US universities, the international students are, the international number is getting higher and higher. That's why they should pay more attention to the instruction in terms of Asian students. As for the curriculum, so when you design a curriculum, international students need more writing support from faculty in addition to supporting their motivation to write by adapting curriculum according to students' need. So if you take a look at my dissertation, you're gonna find a whole section that talks about motivation. And you can see that international students, they continue their graduate studies for specific extrinsic motivations. And what I mean by extrinsic motivations, this means that they continue their education for external purposes, like, for example, to get more money, to get better job, to get the respect of other people. So they should be more motivated in terms of implicit or implical motivation, which means that they should be encouraged to continue their education for the purpose of themselves. This is the meaning of curriculum. So the curriculum should be, devoted to those international students to encourage them, and should be adapted to according to their needs. And the final thing, the final implication is that administration decisions. So this study provides an insight about academic writing difficulties among doctoral students in general, and it helps to shed light on how they can be minimized. Those academic writing difficulties, they can be minimized. This can be done through writing centers, for example, encouraging, group study, writing group studies together. This can be also minimized, and also in addition to, for example, getting more facilitating more ways for students to get, for example, using smart boards to write, using, for example, tablets, iPads, using them for writing, for creative writing. This also can be done through some administrative decisions. Now, although this study was magnificent, but there are also some limitations. The first limitation is that this sample was small, and future studies should get a bigger sample. The other limitation is that the kind of sample. So this study tackled first year doctoral students, but other studies can, for example, study from first year till fourth year or fifth year of their PhD. It can be a longitudinal study that takes into account the difficulties they face while writing. And also the data was self-reported data. So because it was a survey, it was a self-assessed data, which means that sometimes students, give you incorrect answers, and they give you the answers, they're not precise. So this is another limitation. And this study tackled one writing genre, which is the first year writing assignments. But other studies, we can, add other genres of writing. For example, publication writing, dissertation writing, all other genres of writing can be included also. And finally, the generalizability of the survey results. So although this survey, this study was conducted using survey, but the results cannot be generalized to all the PhD students in the US or in the world. Now, future studies. So there are some points that I want, future studies to have. For example, replicating the study with a mixed method research. What do I mean by a mixed method? For example, using qualitative plus quantitative research method to be conducted. The other suggestion is that using another quantitative data collection method other than the self-reported data. You can use a different quantitative data collection. And also conducting a longitudinal study. What are longitudinal studies? So these studies, they usually are user writing, and they follow students through years. So for example, one study that my friend conducted was following students from their first year of doctoral study till their graduation. And she focused on how their writing was developed through these years. This is a longitudinal study, and I wished I made that, but I didn't have time. So it takes time, takes years, but it can be conducted. And also examining academic writing difficulties in relation to other variables, for example, like L1 transfer. So some Arabic, then the transfer that happens from the first language to their second language, and also to the EAP, or composition courses. And what do I mean by EAP? These are academic classes that are given to international students once they come to the US. So once you come to the US, you have to take a whole year of EAP courses. These are conducted to strengthen your writing, your speaking, and also for the domestic students, composition courses. So they take composition courses during the high school, and sometimes during the first year of for example, their study in the College of Arts. They have also some composition courses. So future studies should also take into account academic writing difficulties in relation to those variables. And also investigating other genres of academic writing. So it's not only assignments. There are other academic writing that's related, for example, as we said, to publication, which is a very important one. So you can't use jargon while writing papers. You have to use academic writing. So I hope I can conduct this study. And finally, further investigations are needed regarding the relationship between non-traditional students and academic writing difficulties. And non-traditional students, they refer to students whose ages are over 45 or 45 to 50. So those non-traditional students, they are students who were busy doing jobs, and they, after years, they found time and they got back again to study. This is not work. Doesn't work here in Iraq, but works in USA. You can go back to study anytime you want. So the conclusions. So this study examined academic writing difficulties of domestic and international first-year doctoral students, focusing on the factors that predict the difficulties among them, and how both groups were different from each other in terms of motivation, academic writing difficulties, and GRE. The first quantitative analysis revealed several important factors that predict those difficulties, as we said. And the findings of the MANOVA and the Mancuva revealed statistically significant differences in the GRE and the academic writing difficulties between both groups, but not motivation. However, the results of the post-hook, which is the Mancuva, showed a statistically significant difference in motivation between both groups when the GRE writing scores were controlled for. So I would be happy to hear your questions. And thank you for listening to me and attending this presentation. Any questions?
Can I start something?
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much, Dr. Emman. It was a very valuable presentation. And a very
thank you, Dr. Maha.
And thank you for your efforts and your very nice presentation.
Thank you so much.
I have one question.
Yes.
Sorry, you mentioned all the variables that can be included for later, But something pops into my mind in terms of analyzing the data. Would we look into analyzing, for example, the academic writing itself from a syntactic and grammatical point of view, or what difficulties are there? So is there a further possibility to look into that, or you have looked into that and then maybe on that you can judge before going into investigating more variables or factors that predict difficulties in writing?
Yes. Thank you for your question, Dr. Maha. That's a very valuable one. Well, for the validity of the instrument, my instrument, part of it was adopted from other studies, so they were pre-validated, and the other part I'm still working on. So I have now a study under investigation. I'm working on it. It's a project that takes into account and investigate the validity of the academic writing difficulties. So the scale itself. I'm now doing a factor analysis to check the validity of the scale itself. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, any other question, please?
Dr. Iman, I would agree with you as well that L1 is a factor in, like, you know, the transfer of L1 into the foreign language. That effect would be very real. So you can predict these maybe for future studies.
Yeah, that would be very interesting, you know,
There's
because
many studies at Newcastle University, they have worked on that, especially those who are working on applied linguistics, not my field, but I've seen, I've done one of my assignments on that. So L1 is a really contributing factor to difficulties in academic writing. So among, like, let's say Arab students, it's very real. And maybe Asian students, yeah, it's very real as well. Maybe Chinese and, you know, some Asian backgrounds.
yeah. This also is related to their, you know, the traditions of the first language. You know, it's related also to their culture. It's related to, it's like it could be a sociolinguistic, applied linguistic, you know, study that goes into details with the variables that are included within the L1 transfer, because L1 transfer is not that easy. It's a huge thing that you need to be discussed. It's related, as you said, to Asian students, to all international students. That's why this issue, it's not issue, but it's it can be an essence to a whole study, and I would love to do that in the next this would be my next step. This would be my next step, inshallah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Dr. Iman?
Yes, Dr. Basim.
Dr. Iman?
Yes, Dr. Basim. I hear you. Clear and loud. Alaikum assalam.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Iman, for this fantastic and informative presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
In fact, I have a number of questions, if you don't mind.
No, please go ahead.
The first one is, was the topic your own choice, or was it imposed upon you by the University of Florida?
No, it was my choice. So my original topic was about the GRE test and how biased and unbiased it is against international students. Then I couldn't get into the data from the ETS. It was difficult to get data to analyze it, you know, the questions. That's why I changed my topic to writing difficulties. And the writing part of the GRE gave me the idea, because it was difficult, you know, to pass the GRE test. So it was not imposed, no. It was my choice.
So it is your own choice, okay.
Yep.
Now,
yep.
You have identified motivation, gender, race, college of study, GRE writing score, age as predictors of academic writing difficulties among first-year students. Okay? Well,
yes.
Don't you think that background knowledge in English and how English is viewed as a second or a foreign language in the country of the doctoral students is more important predictor than the variables you have identified?
Can you repeat that again? You said that English language background. You mean the transfer?
Well, you have identified a number of variables.
Yes.
That may affect, that may function as a predictors of academic writing, like motivation, gender, race, college of study, GRE, etc., etc. Now, don't you think that background knowledge in language, in English in particular, and how English is viewed as a second or a foreign language in the country of doctoral students is more important, predictor than the variables you have identified?
Yeah, I can use that variable only with international students, but I cannot use it with the domestic students, right? Because domestic students, this is considered as their language. So if I include it, I have to exclude domestic students. But I wanted to focus on what they have. I want to see if there were differences between them and international students. So if I focused on international students, this means I'm doing what other people did, focusing on them.
Yes, I agree with you. You have excluded native speakers, but you know that some of your participants, English is a second language for them.
Correct.
For others, English is a foreign language for them. Don't you think that this is an important variable?
No, I agree with you. It's an essential variable. It's a very important variable, but again, it's not applicable to my study, because again, I have international versus domestic.
Yeah, of course. Has not been...
Yeah, that's why I said in the future studies we should focus on the EAP courses.
It is a very important variable that should be taken into account in your study.
Yes, that's why I said that it's part of the future studies. We have to focus on the AWD plus the transfer.
It is supposed to be an important variable in your study.
It is, but it's not applicable to my study because I have domestic students. I cannot apply it to domestic students. I can apply it to international students. And again, I'm going to be copying what other people did. I was trying to do something new.
Yeah, I do agree with you, but not in this sense. Not in this sense. You see, anyway. Now, my third question is, were there Iraqi doctoral students in your sample?
Yeah, there were Iraqi students, about 10 of them, 10 or 15. 10 or 15 students. They were from engineering, College of Engineering, and 2 of them were from College of Education. Yes.
Iraqi students?
Yeah. Iraqi students.
Good. Now, another question.
Yeah.
You were preoccupied with statistics. Most of your discussion was on statistics. Now, what are the major challenges that face first-year doctoral students in academic writing?
As we said, they basically about motivation. So the first thing is that they were not motivated as we thought.
No, as far as language is concerned.
No, I didn't look at the samples of their writing. If you mean the writing, their writing, I didn't look at the genres or their writing. This is related to longitudinal studies or discourse analysis studies. It's not related to mine. It's different from my study. My study, it's an exploratory one. It takes into account what are the variables that predict those difficulties, not discussing those difficulties in details. This is related also to qualitative approaches, like, for example, doing interviews with those students. So it's not applicable to mine.
Dr. Emman,
yes,
you were preoccupied. Your immediate concern is the challenges that face first-year doctoral students in academic writing. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay? Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
you are right.
I was occupied. I was not occupied. No.
You didn't tell us
yes,
what these challenges look like. You see, I am, as a reader, I want to know the major challenges that face first-year doctoral students in academic writing. You tell me so many things about statistics.
Yes. I think I sent you my. I sent you my study, right, in the email.
Yes,
I'm gonna share with you. Yes, I'm gonna share with you what. Yeah, I'm gonna share with you what I have for the survey. You mean the survey? What are the difficulties they faced? And I'm gonna share with you those difficulties that you mentioned, because they are related for the mechanics of writing. For example, they are related to. There we go. Okay, let me share with you what I have.
My last question.
No, let me show you. You said that I was preoccupied. No, I was not. I told you that I discussed that in the survey and you have seen it. So here it goes. So this is let me share with you, with all of you, so that you can see that I was not preoccupied actually. Okay.
Anyway,
no, I need them to say it so that, because this accusation is not correct. So this is the dissertation survey. As you can see, no, it was an accusation. You said that I was preoccupied. I was not. So this is the dissertation survey, as you can see. So this talks about the status, which is domestic or international. Here you can see the aspect they faced problems with, which is the grammar accuracy, vocabulary use, academic style, idea development, text organization. This is only question. We have more. So these are the difficulties. Also, it's related to the mechanics, which is spelling, punctuation, capitalization, grammar. You can see that the scale, which goes from extremely difficult to extremely easy. These are also about the organization of ideas. So it's concerned about, as you can see, this is how I analyzed my data. I based my analysis on these things that you said that I didn't handle or tackle or discuss or address.
Well,
so
my last
you can see all, right? And I'm going to send it to you all. See?
Okay. Well, my last point is, what insights can your study have to our Iraqi first-year doctoral students? And how can your results be useful in predicting of our own doctoral students?
Well, first, it was not conducted for Iraqi students. It was conducted for all international students from different ethnicities. Yeah, but they were a small, really small number. There was like 10, 11, but we have more than 100 other people. So it was not really to address their difficulties. But as I said, for example, they were not motivated. They were not motivated to write or to complete their assignments as domestic were. This is number one. It also implied that their masters, their background, their master studies, they were totally different from the thing that they faced in the PhD. And I am one of them. So, for example, if you compare our studies in the master, it was torturing students. It was memorizing. It was not about discussion. It was not about learning. It was not about teaching. It was just to torture students. But when I went there, no, it was all cooperation between, students and their supervisors or their professors. It was totally comfortable to talk to your professor without even being afraid that you're gonna say something wrong and you're gonna be criticized later. So that's why they were not motivated. They were not motivated. And they are still not motivated. That's why.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Emman. And sorry for inconvenience.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Any other questions? I would love to answer your questions. Okay. Do we have any other question?
Thank you, Dr. Iman. I would love if you can share some of your results or maybe your thesis. If it's
Yes,
online
yes, it's online. It's online. You just write my
I'm really
name.
interested in the test you have done, the statistical ones, just to look at
Yes,
the post hoc, because they do it. Yeah, they do it differently in Newcastle. And one more thing. They add, instead of the SPSS, I don't know if you know the R program, which make things very easy for the statistical thing. So you just put the codes, programming, and then you can get whatever you need. Just it's much easier than SPSS, and it's getting things done more accurately. So, for example,
I would love to discuss that with you. I would love to discuss that with you, Dr. Maha. I would
I've done it in my thesis, and for linear regression, and especially for the factors you predicted, it will really give you very nice results and very nice graphs. So good luck.
That would be great.
Again.
Yeah, thank you for your suggestion.
Thank you again. Thank you. I've said a lot, so I don't want to take.
Oh, no, please. Don't worry about it. And if you write the name of my dissertation plus my name, you're going to find it online.
Okay.
It's open access.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Iman. Actually, it has been so great to have you here with us today in this scientific gathering. God bless you. Wish you all the best in your future research and studies. Also, I want to thank all of you, our guests, for your attending and effective participation, challenging the lockdown and the bad extraordinary circumstances represented by COVID-19 pandemic. God bless you all.
Thank you so much for attending, and thank you for your presentation. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate your introduction and your you all. I was so pleased to have you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Huda. Ms. Huda, thank you very much for this nice moderation.
Thank you, Dr. Bassem. It's my pleasure. And have a nice night.